Hey, hey, hey! Come on in. Happy Wednesday. Pull up a chair because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm back once again as your host here at the Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. I'm your host, Jeff McAleer. So, today's the day after Christmas. It is Boxing Day over in the UK. I believe it's only the UK. Well, I think it's the UK. I was going to say England, but no, I think it's the United Kingdom that celebrates Boxing Day. And I actually know what Boxing Day is. I know for years and years. First thing that always popped into my head was, do they have a lot of boxing matches that take place? But it's kind of along the lines of that those who were well off used to give little gifts to their servants. So they didn't give them they didn't give them like Christmas presents. They gave them Boxing Day gifts. So, Hanukkah's in full swing. Kwanzaa kicked off today. I think Festivus is still going on. So, whatever winter holiday you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate any of them, here's hoping at least you're having some fun, right? So, anyway, got an interesting show today. So, things were really, really busy. I was running all over the place today. Had, my usual Wednesday cardiovascular rehab this afternoon. So I didn't really have a ton of time to put together news today. Plus, there wasn't a ton of news out there that really was jumping out at me. So I decided what I'm going to do is I am actually going to pretty much devote the entire show to unboxing and taking a first look at the science fiction game that's just come out from GMT. It is SpaceCorp 2025-2300 AD, and it is designed by John Butterfield. So that is what we're going to mainly be taking a look at today. So stay tuned. I'll be jumping into that in just a few moments. Before I hop into that, did want to talk about what's coming up on the rest of this week, plus what's going on next week for the Daily Dope. I have received a bunch of stuff in the past. Well, I received just on Christmas Eve, I received a couple of boxes of items for review. So I want to lay out what's going on, what's coming up on future shows as well. So Wednesdays, of course, I always like to try to look at war games or conflict simulations or kind of heavy strategy games. So that's why today we are taking a look at SpaceCorp. Although, I got to be honest, it doesn't strike me as if it's a war game per se, but you are competing, as far as I understand. I don't know. I haven't cracked the box open. I believe you are competing with other players in order to advance space exploration and possibly create space bases and things like that. So, anywho, on tomorrow's show, if you watched my previous episode, I spent almost 2 hours. It was about an hour and 50 minutes talking about the 24 favorite games I had in 2018. And I kind of boiled it down to various different genres. So there were war games, there were kind of traditional-ish board games, role-playing games, so on and so forth. So my favorite role-playing release for 2018 is Forbidden Lands from Modifius Entertainment and Free League Publishing. I had yet to do a review. So on tomorrow's show, I am going to do my review much more in depth than on the my favorites show. And I'm going to talk about why this is my favorite role-playing game release of 2018. Now, keep in mind, and in fact, somebody had actually emailed me telling me I had a lot of nerve with the best games of 2018 that I was talking about, because I left off all these fantastic games that are way better than my best games of 2018, and how I'm an idiot and blah blah blah. You know that usual kind of moron who decides that their knowledge of gaming is just blows away yours, right? So I kind of got the impression that this is somebody who probably had not played most of the stuff that I was talking about were my favorite games. So here was the big thing. I never said that they were the best games. In fact, during the show, I think it was twice, maybe even 3 times, I mentioned these are my favorite games of 2018, not necessarily the best games of 2018, because obviously enough, I did not play every single game that came out. Far from it. In fact, for the entire year, I believe it's 94 reviews that I did in 2018 for games, for gaming, tabletop games, which probably may not sound like a lot, but honestly, that's quite a bit. So anyway, because I kind of cheated, there were 2 games that I said were were favorites of mine from this year that I had not actually done a full review on. So I will take care of that for Forbidden Lands tomorrow. The other is Codenames Marvel. I'll probably do that right after the first of the year. So that's on tomorrow's show. Then on Friday's show, I got a special treat. I know for a lot of people this is not going to be like earth-shattering or anything like that, because this edition of Nemo's War has actually been out for a while. This edition of Nemo's War, this is the second edition of Nemo's War, has been out like a year and a half-ish from Victory Point Games. I've got the little expansion pack. Now, they just finished a Kickstarter for 2 more of these little expansion packs. The reason why I'm pumped about checking out the second edition of Nemo's War is I am one of the handful of people who actually reviewed the original Nemo's War from Victory Point Games when it came in a Ziploc bag. And I mean, when I say there were very few of us, I'm not talking about the people who, they're on Board Game Geek writing reviews, right? I'm talking about people who actually invest their own money to have their own websites and don't necessarily post only on Board Game Geek. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, we have our own outlets. I want to say, back in the day, I want to say this is probably 2010-ish, 2011. I think all in all, there were like 3 of us. You can count us on one hand. 3 of us who had reviewed the original, kind of almost like desktop publishing edition of Nemo's War, and really dug it. This is a lot of fun. I can't wait to see the really cool new components, and there's a miniature of the Nautilus and everything else. Really look forward to it. And of course, I am also going to take a look at the little expansion pack as well. So next week, kind of up in the air. I don't think I'm going to have a show on New Year's Day. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I am not sure if I'm going to have to watch my niece and nephew. And then there is a New Year's Eve party that I'm going to. And it's a lot of games, and a lot of gaming, stuff like that. And it starts earlier. So it starts at around 7 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock is when these folks, my friends, usually throw their parties. So I'm thinking I probably will not have a show on New Year's Day, not even an early show. That being said, I might actually have a show on New Year's Day. Don't know. I don't know. It would be kind of nice to have like a long weekend off. So I haven't decided. So stay tuned on Twitter. I will definitely keep folks in the loop. But regardless, first show I'm back, if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm going to be taking a look at Australia from my pals over at Stronghold Games. This is designed by Martin Wallace. This is a Cthulhian, a Lovecraftian game where it's a follow-up to Study in Emerald, and that was where the Victorians were fighting Lovecraftian horrors, and they were able to beat them back. Now it's in the 1920s. I think it's the 20s or 30s. Might be the 30s. And during the there's some exploration of Australia, and it turns out, oh, look at what happened. Cthulhu and his minions have been hiding out in the outback. So, hey, Paul Nolan's popping in. Take the long weekend. I'm sure you can use it. Hey, well, thanks for chiming in on chat, Paul. In fact, you know, the funny thing is, I started the show today, and every show I always say, hey, this is a live stream. If you want to say howdy on chat, blah, blah, blah. I forgot to do it today. So, anyway, yeah, that's kind of funny. I'm sure you can use it. Yeah, probably. So anyway, so next week, if I don't have a show on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, on Wednesday I will look at Australia, which honestly, for a War Game Wednesday, that kind of fits because it is kind of a conflict simulation. So Thursdays, love talking role-playing games. So as I already pointed out, tomorrow's show, I'm going to review my favorite role-playing game product of 2018, that is Forbidden Lands from Free League and Modifius. Next Thursday, I have received all the goodies, well, I should say all the book goodies for Torg Eternity Living Land. So I have the GM screen. We're going to take a look at that. I have the Living Land source book. So we're going to take a look at that. And I've got the Delphi missions. Hey, I didn't get the God Machine. I wonder if that's not out yet. I thought it was. Huh, that was the one I'm really looking forward to because that's kind of a long campaign in the Living Land. I'll have to reach out to my contact at Ulysses and find out, because that was one of the kind of critiques I had for the first wave of releases for Torg Eternity, which I think is a very, very cool setting, but that it didn't have anything that was really connected, any adventures that were kind of connected together. Everything was very standalone or just kind of drop things into your campaign. So anyway, so that'll be next Thursday. Then next Friday, I am going to take a look at Shadow Rift, which is a deck building game. It is from, I want to say it's from Starling Games. I know it's part of the Game Salute group. I am looking here. No, I do not see. Okay, but okay, so I'm pretty sure it's from Starling Games, because I thought Starling Games was doing the Kickstarter for the new expansion. So this is a kind of a fantasy deck building game. So I have heard this is pretty interesting. So I'm going to be taking a peek at that. Here's some of the other stuff that has arrived. So, Paper Tales from Stronghold Games. This looked really interesting, and Stephen Bonacore and I talked about this during my interview with him, what was it, a little more than a week ago. And this just looks like a cool, kind of quick fantasy card game. They're actually creating an empire, but your cards only last so long. They have a kind of a time limit on them. They age. So I thought that looked pretty cool. All right, I got some other GMT stuff. I've got the Dark Sands War in North Africa, 1940 to 1942. So this just recently came out, so I will be taking a look at this in the very near future. There's also a new expansion for Talon. Talon 1000, and Talon 1000 includes 1000 scenarios, obviously enough, for Talon. And then there's another game that looks pretty interesting, Master of Wills. And this is from Stormcrest Games, not a company I am familiar with, but they are part of the Game Salute kind of umbrella. And this is kind of a science fiction game of influence and manipulation. So I will be taking a look at that as well. So there is a lot of stuff cooking, a lot of stuff coming up on future shows. I am definitely going to reach out to, whoa, as my Nemo's War expansion flies off. I am definitely going to reach out to my contact over at Ulysses North America, because I'm, okay, not as if I'm like sitting there like, oh, this wasn't enough stuff. No, my one critique I've really got about Touring Eternity is how there isn't like a campaign book. They released a campaign book for Living Lands, and they forget to send it. Maybe it's out of stock. I don't know. Maybe it's just not in yet. Anyway, okay, so that's what's coming up on future shows. I know folks are tuning in, and of course, there are show notes. So if you are not watching this live, thankfully, hopefully you'll look in the show notes and you'll see, oh, you can skip ahead and check out the unboxing of SpaceCorp 2025-2300AD from my pals over at GMT Games. It's designed by John Butterfield. Whoa, wait a second. Why are we getting these coming up? Hold on a moment. It's supposed to only be this one. There you go. All right. See, I told you I was running around all day. Lucky I got the show off on time, because no joke, everything was turned on and all the lights and everything were all set up, and it was 6:58. So, yeah, when I say I was running around all day, I wasn't joking. Anywho, SpaceCorp is designed by John Butterfield, with artwork and graphic design provided by Chad Jensen. That was kind of surprising. I'm surprised Chad Jensen was involved in doing some of the graphics for this, because Chad's a designer. Kurt Miller, Douglas Schrock, and Mark Simonich. The game is for 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and plays in anywhere between about 30 minutes to 3.5 hours or more. It's going to all depend on how long of a game you're going to play, how many eras you're playing, and probably the player count as well. SpaceCorp is available right now, and it carries an MSRP of $82. And I did check the GMT website. It is still in stock as of right this moment. So that will probably change, and I will talk about that in just a bit. So let's switch on over to the other camera here and take a look at SpaceCorp. Now, I had to point out, John Butterfield's name popped out, and I was like, okay, I know I've played stuff that John Butterfield has designed, but I'm almost positive it's from back in the day, right? Because I've been gaming for 40 years, a little more than 40 years. So I'm like, okay, so what has John Butterfield done? So right away, I noticed he had designed Dawn of the Dead. All right, what's popping up here? Get rid of this. I hate when my browsers just like, I've got them set where they're not supposed to like pop up little notifications, and they still do. It's like, ah. Anyway, I was going to say, John Butterfield did Dawn of the Dead, an old SPI box game that I had. And wow, that brings back a lot of memories. He also did, I want to say, I think it was called Stargate, which was like it was like a small kind of Ziploc bag. It was that SPI did. SPI started releasing these Ziploc bag games after they saw how popular the micro games were, and meta games, and they released one, and it was a science fiction game. Don't remember anything about it though. I do remember Dawn of the Dead, where you were actually playing, and it was in the mall, just like the original Dawn of the Dead and the remake that George Romero did. So, yeah, what is this hanging out down here? I swear the duct tape studio is falling apart. Just falling apart. Okay, so let's take a look. It says SpaceCorp 2025-2300 AD is a fast-playing board game in which 1 to 4 players explore and develop outer space over 3 eras. Each player controls an Earth-based enterprise seeking profit by driving the expansion of humanity into the solar system and beyond. Hello, Elon Musk. Each era plays out on a different board. The first era, Mariners, covers exploration and development out to Mars. In Planeteers, players settle the outer solar system. In Starfarers, players send missions to nearby star systems and establish interstellar colonies. You earn profit from exploration discoveries by conducting production at resource sites and by completing contracts. Will you focus on being the first to explore new horizons beyond known space, developing genetics and tech breakthroughs for... SpaceCorp's solo game is a complete play experience in itself with its own rules, book, and play aid. Can you beat your aggregated competition to the stars? Sweet. So, as I mentioned, it's for 1 to 4 players. Oh, ages 14 and up. For some reason, I thought it was 12 and up. And here it says that playtime is 1 to 4 hours. There was some information I ran across saying 30 minutes to 3.5 hours. Which, first off, I thought 30 minutes, that seems awfully short. First thing I'm going to mention, this box has some really solid heft to it. That tends to be the case with most GMT games. You don't crack them open and find a bunch of air inside. So we've got the solo rulebook right off the bat. We've got a multiplayer rulebook. Looks like we've got some player aids. All right, so first off, let's take a look at the solo rulebook. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark that it's possible that you read the solo player, the solitaire player rulebook first, because the multiplayer rulebook probably builds upon the concepts that you just read about in the solo rulebook. So let's take a peek. Oh, you know what I meant to look at? What is the complexity? Complexity is medium, according to GMT. They give it a 4, and solitaire suitability is 9. Well, we know that because we're looking at solo rulebook here. I find now that maybe I'm just dumber than a box of rocks, but I find that the complexity level for GMT games is usually a touch higher than what they indicate. Not by much. Usually if they say it's a 5 out of 9, I kind of think it's more along the lines of maybe about 6. So let's take a look, see what we got here. All right, so as we can see, this is going to be kind of a colorful rule book here. So we got our introduction, we got the game components. So I believe that there are 3 different maps in the game, and that if you're playing the full game, you're actually going to utilize each of those maps or game boards. I'm pretty sure it's more along the lines of them being game boards. So I thought that was kind of cool that, you know, if you're playing like the full kind of campaign, right, from 2025 to 2300, you're going to use all 3 of those boards. And I guess when you end one era and you're going to begin the other era, of course, what happened in that previous era is going to actually have something to do with how your next era gets set up. So, of course, there is going to be some continuity. So here we go, setting up era 1 for the Mariners. And I'm not talking about Seattle Mariners either. The competition. Competition teams. All competition teams are identical and interchangeable regardless of color. Whether you are instructed to remove a competition team from anywhere, place it back in the competition box. So, unlike, say, a terraforming Mars, it appears that each of the competitors who are, you know, competing to get out into space are going to be identical. That there won't be, you know, like, it appears looking at this. Now, there might be some optional rules in here or something. But unlike like terraforming Mars, each of the corporations kind of have their own little special abilities, and they start off with different amounts of money and things like that. All right, so site ID numbers, competition turns, your turn conducting actions. You can research, move, explore, build, produce, genetics, upgrade, and special. Using infra on your HQ. SpaceCorp math. Uh-oh. Math is hard. Whenever a value is being determined for any activity in SpaceCorp, always perform all addition and subtraction before applying any multiplication or division. Wouldn't you think that'd be kind of obvious? I mean, that's what I would think. Okay, so talking about playing cards using bases, claiming contracts, rewards, transport teams, discarding cards and replenishing cards, drawing, gaining an edge. Oh, okay, so at least maybe as your corporations continue onward, you can gain edges, so that'd be cool, make you a little bit different. Okay, so here we got solo edge effects. Talking about your actions, so breaking down research, moving. And I believe you actually play cards. So where it says like move 5, I think that's on a card. So you might have a card in your hand where it says move 5. So I do not know. I have not seen the boards yet. I just kind of have a feeling that might be how it works. Because they do show cards on the back of the box. So we've got exploring, we've got building. Probably have to add these factors together to determine what you can do from your hand of cards. We've got production, we've got genetics. Transhumanity, man! I'm guessing. That's what I'm taking a guess at. Upgrading, competition actions. I got to admit, I am infinitely fascinated, I guess I would say, with the concept of humanity spreading out to the stars, and how there are various different camps who think, well, the first thing we should do is we should actually build a base on the moon. There are other factions who say, no, we don't need to do that. We don't need to go popping onto the moon. We can go right to Mars and start a base on Mars and colonize Mars. And I also find it very interesting how that whole like transhumanity sort of aspect, where there are a lot of scientists who think that humans will have to undergo radical adaptation and changes for us to be able to survive in space. Obviously enough, our bodies as they are now would not be able to survive the rigors of extended space travel, right? Because we're gonna have to figure out some sort of way to like cryogenically freeze or to slow down the aging process for unless we have like generation ships that go out across the stars. But pretty cool. There was an audiobook, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the author's name. He was Japanese, I remember that, and a lot of really fascinating stuff about how will we actually go out into the stars. And I know that Elon Musk is a big proponent of humanity taking to the stars, because then that way we will not have to worry about an extinction event wiping us, out of the galaxy. That's his main concern. And that's, strangely enough, that is a possibility. That is a real possibility. Whereas if we're actually out amongst the stars, pretty impossible to remove us from the equation. Okay, unless when our alien overlords arrive. So, all right, then we got, so we were looking at setting up for Planeteers, which that's the second era. Then we've got setting up era 3, Starfarers. So once again, see it's a completely different board. Talking about the additional rules, multiplication, interstellar movement, because now we're out into the universe. It's not just our solar system that we're concerned with in the third era. Sweet. And then we got some optional era situations. Brain Drain, Golden Age, Popular Support, Rogue Asteroid, The Great Leap. Okay, so that is the solo rulebook. What do we have here? How many pages? 28. So not too bad. A lot of images. Pretty big font too, so it doesn't look like a really difficult to wrap your head around. Very nice. Very nicely done. Then we got the multiplayer rulebook. So is this going to kind of pick up where we left off, or is it? Nah, it looks like it's pretty much kind of its own rulebook. Got the introduction, game components, talking about the game board, headquarters, setting up Era 1. Yeah, kind of its own thing. That's interesting. So talking about the player turn, gaining an edge, the actions. So this rulebook is laid out quite a lot like the solitaire player book. Of course, obviously enough, it's explaining, rather than your turn and your, AI turn, it's talking about, okay, so you've got your turn and then the other player's turns. All right, cool deal. Setting up Era 3, and we got additional rules for the Starfaring era. And we've got some game variants. Okay, so if you don't want to play like the entire, which I assumed we were going to see this. So if you don't want to play the entire long game with all 3 eras, you could start with Planeteers. You can also start with Starfarers. Obviously enough, I would think it's pretty apparent that you could also just start with the first era, which is the Mariners. All right, so I'm going to take a guess. We've got 4 player handouts, player aid cards. So we got 1. Wow, actually, this is nice, thick stock on these. I think this is, so I'm checking to see, does this fold open? No. I gotta be honest, I think this is probably the thickest card stock I've seen for a handout from GMT. Huh, cool. Not to say that usually they're flimsy, I'm just saying that these are just a bit thicker than usual. All right, so we've got, whoops, as that goes. Looks like we've got different kinds of, we see attractions, biolab, exploiter, industrial, refinery, research, secure, shield factory, spaceport. It's talking about the benefits. I guess, I assume these are kind of like buildings. And then over here we've got a turn sequence. Talking about competition turn sequence for the solitaire game. Edges, here are your actions once again. So it looked like we did have 4 of them. Yep, we do. We have 4 of the player aids there. Then we've got for, it looks like this is for the solo player. So we have competition actions. Competition base match events table, solo edge effects table. So that is for if you're playing the solitaire game. So we've got that. Looks like we've got some player boards here. Nice and thick. Looks like we've got, what, do we have 5 of these, or? Okay, so we got 4 of these here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you know what? I bet you, now that I think about it, I bet the player boards actually change as well through the eras. That's my guess. So, okay, so this is, I think, for Legacy. So it's possible that this is the Mariner side. This is maybe the Mariner board. And then this is the Planeteers board. And then these are the Starfarer or Spacefarer boards here. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, so we've got those. We've got some decks of cards. We're going to take a look at these last. Oh, we got a little game deck here. A little deck. Okay. All right, we got some GMT baggies like we normally run across. Oh, 2 more decks of cards. So we've got some cubes and we've got some discs. So we've got some various colored cubes. Take a wild stab. Maybe the each of the cube colors represents a player, company. What do we got here? We got purple, yellow, green, brown, blue, and black. Oh, we got up to 4 players. Maybe the black ones are just markers of some sort. All right, so we got those. Okay, so we've got the boards. I don't think the boards are going to be huge. I honestly don't. So I'm going to take a guess. One of the boards is going to be dual-sided, and probably the other one will not. So we've got some counters. We got some punch boards here. So we've got, yep. Okay, so I can see right away that, yeah, those colors of the cubes represent the colors of the players, because we've got yellow, purple, blue, green. We're all seeing the same thing. Spaceports, exploiters, refineries. We've got that. We've got these counters here, these hexagonal counters. We've got rogue asteroid, pirates, an alien artifact. Oh, wow. So we're going to get some aliens maybe in this. Exotic elements, natural wonder, abundant ores. Oh, so dual-sided. So we've got different discoveries. I'm going to take a guess that these are different era. The E1, E2 represents Era 1, Era 2. So we've got that. We've got more of the round tokens. Shield factories, attractions, industrial. For each of the 4 factions here. 4 corporations or corporate entities, I guess. Oh, there we go. We got aliens. We got hostile aliens. All right, we got some more of the hexagonal, and then it looks like we've got more of these discoveries. So E1, and then we got secondary discoveries, alien discoveries. We've got that. We've got a few more of the circular tokens. So we've got secure research biolabs. We've got alien artifacts, critical mission delay. Some more discoveries, it looks like. Yep, so now we got some E3, some Era 3 discoveries. We've got some primary discoveries, because we had secondary discoveries over here. Right there, we had some secondary discoveries. Then it looks like this is a VP track. Well, profit track, but I think that's how you win. I think whoever's pulling in the highest profits. So here are the contracts too. So we saw already in the rulebook that how you go about gaining a contract. So we've got first base on Mars, first produce action, 2 progress cards, first colony. All right, so Era 3 is colonization, it looks like. Nice. Because it looks like prior to that, it's just bases. It's not necessarily colonies. So cool. So we got that. Oh, and then it's dual-sided. Oh, I see. So so it's called the business display, and this is for 3 to 4 players, and this is for 1 to 2 players. Nice. That's cool. I like how they did that. All right. So we've got that. We've got the punch boards. All right. Let's take a look here. All right. So what I always point out when I'm taking one of the maps or game boards out of the plastic bags that GMT puts them in, I always mention, be careful. It's so easy to catch the edge and kind of tear the paper on the board. I got to be honest, I never put the boards back in the bags. I always leave them out. All right, so this is a dual-sided board. Okay, so this is for the Starfarers. And yeah, this isn't a big board at all. Cool. I'm sure you're taking up enough space on your table. So as we can see there, I actually have to lift this up a little bit so I don't bump into the tripod holding the camera up. So I'm taking a guess that this stuff here on the board is probably not as complex looking because we got all these little squares and circles and ellipticals, and I'm sure it's much easier to figure out. Okay, so here's the Planeteers. So that's okay. So this is the board for the Starfarer. So this is from 2150 to 2299. Okay, then this is for the second era. This is for the Planeteers. So it looks like it's got a kind of a similar set up a little bit. We've got these offers running down the side, but we just see that there's not as, like here, over here, we're looking at different galaxies or solar systems. Whereas here, we're just looking at, you know, this is within our own solar system here. I'm thinking maybe this is all just like, this is just a Milky Way out here. All right, so we got that. So we got this board. And then we're going to have the other board. Oh, now that I think about it, I wonder if there's a board just for the solitaire player. I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, I'll tell you what. This is also dual-sided. So first off, let's take a look at this. This is for the Mariners. So this is the Mariners board. And where's as far as we go? Yeah, I was going to say, we're going only as far as Mars out here. So I believe that is, I believe this is the, pretty much what you're aiming for. This is your objective in the first era, is to actually create a base on Mars. So once again, we'll kind of just sort of lift this up a little bit to try to get more of this in the shot down here. Oh, that's kind of cool. It's telling the distance from Earth. I bet you this is where you have the movement cards, where you're actually adding your movement cards together. And we got a competition offers action key for solitaire play. Now let's see what's on this side here. So this is, well, it's showing us different cards and stuff. So I'm curious. I wonder, now I'm just guessing, I'm just wondering, because as I mentioned, the different eras are supposed to play a little bit differently, because of course your objectives are changing. So I'm wondering if maybe if you play, this is the first era here, this is the Mariners. I wonder if you're playing like the longer game where you're going to have the Planeteers and then the Starfarers. I wonder if you utilize this board here. It's possible that this board is used in the second and third eras. So that's a possibility. I do not know. Tell you what, everything looks really nice. This looks really cool. Let's start looking at the cards, because that's the last thing we've got left. So let's put the two boards back in here. All right, and we got 4 decks of cards. Well, we actually have a little deck here. So I wonder if these are like the edge cards or something. All right, so let's crack these open. Let me grab a sip here real quick. Yeah, it's another dry night down here in the Duct Tape Studios. Okay. Looks like a different, yeah, I was going to say, it looks like a different card back here, because you could kind of tell all of a sudden the card's coloring changes here. So we've got that. All right, and then this is just, these cards are just in here. I don't know if these are optional. They might be, because it looks like we've got, there's only 4 cards. Poach, Hack, Competition, and Incompatible. Okay, so got those cards there. So we've got a game deck. These are all part of the game deck. I see we got a progress deck. Okay, so we got the progress deck, and we got the game deck here. Looks like these are all game deck cards. Yeah, they are. And game deck. Wow, so there are a lot of game deck cards. So I'm curious if if you have to go sort through these depending on the era. I'm taking a guess that is probably the case. So just taking a look here, we have, for an example, that says solid nuclear drive. So it looks like it's giving you an option that you could spend this card as a movement 2 or an explore 1. Then it shows may upgrade as infra. So probably upgrading your infrastructure. We see a little moon down here. We see a little kind of sliver of a moon, which here we also have that sliver of a moon, but with a darker background. So we see B/IT in all offers. So even the little bottom part. So it looks as if we've got kind of, the card is broken up into different areas of what you can do with the card. And what I see, it says M15. I'm going to take a guess these cards are going to be numbered. And as we can see here, if we look in the corner, it says start and then M1. So I'm taking a guess we may need to kind of build the deck or kind of seed the deck with specific cards. So we've got Heavy Lifter. Because if you're like starting off with the first era, I'm taking a guess that there are like third era cards that you're not going to want to have in the mix. Almost along the lines of, say, Twilight Struggle. You've got, you know, the early Cold War, you got the mid-Cold War, and then you got the end. And those decks get the middle and the end, or late, I should say, get shuffled in as you go through turns. So I'm wondering if something like that takes place here. Do you see that we have some different locations? It looks like some locations down on the bottom of some of these cards. And then also a number. So once again, these cards all have the little sliver of the moon without a background color. Got some have edges on there now. Okay, then it looks like this is maybe an event time. Got a few of these. Yeah, looks like we got quite a few. But then down at the bottom, it looks like the star or planet is a bit different, although that was repeated here. Okay, so that's this deck. Look what we got here. I'm not going to look through all of these, but yeah, okay, it's got to be, because we've got the moon there. Now suddenly we have like Saturn with a ring. So I'm taking a guess that these decks were already set up. They were already wrapped kind of the way you're supposed to put these together. It's my guess. So we've got this, because once again, we're seeing start. So obviously we've got some starting cards in a starting deck. And for an example, these are P. Ah, okay, so P must be for the Planeteers. Yeah, Micro Mesh, Fusion Drives, Mobile Labs, Quantum Leap. Oh, wow, okay. Quantum Leap. Clone Forge, Survey Cyborgs. Wow, that's pretty cool. Antimatter Prototype, Sabotage, Poach. Yeah, these 4 cards here, notice they've got like this little kind of like star icon for those 4 cards. Okay, so these I'm guessing are for the Planeteers. Well, looks like we might have some more Planeteers here. Because we've got that little planet with the rings again, and it's in a P55. Okay, there we go. Yep. And here we've got S. So we see down here it shows S1, showing it's a start card. And it's got the little star. Okay, so I'm guessing from what I'm looking at here, if it's got like the little background to it, that's a starting card. If it doesn't, this must be cards that get shuffled in as things come along. It's that is correct. So hey, John Vogel's popping in. I'm not sure what I'm correct about though, John. I'm kind of just babbling on here. So Sorry, I hadn't glanced over at the chat in a while. Good to see you popping in, John. All right, so got that like so. So we got the stars here. So this must be for the Starfarers. Antimatter boosters, antimatter surveyor, megastructures. It's like a ring world there almost. Nano miners. Survey cyborgs again. Cool. DNA synthesis. So it appears that each of these decks are going to be separated. So you're going to have your decks that you'll have for the Mariners. You'll have your deck. I shouldn't say decks. Deck that you'll have for the Mariners. The deck you'll have for the Planeteers. And then you'll have the deck you're going to have for the Starfarers. Now let's see what this progress deck or progress deck looks like. Looks as if these were the cards that were on the back of the one board. The use of the board in the back of the first board. Cool. Thanks, John. Yeah, I was just taking a guess. That's kind of how it seemed. So we've got adaptation. So various different adaptations. As I was talking about earlier, that audiobook I had listened to, they were talking about various different ways that we would have to adapt the human body if we were to actually go out and try to colonize space. Got to admit, if anybody out there has not watched the National Geographic series Mars, check it out. Number one, I hadn't watched it until I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and we were invited to the party from Nat Geo for Mars, and it was fascinating. It was, I mean, of course, it was like all the free food and booze you could eat and drink, but they had astronauts there. I mean, it was just wild. So, of course, I watched the first season when I got back because they actually gave me a copy of it, and I was like, wow, this is excellent. This is an excellent show. The dramatic parts of it are kind of, but at least they really do kind of dive into some of the challenges that we would face if we were trying to build a colony on Mars. Radiation is pretty much like our biggest problem, biggest thing that we have to deal with. Okay, so then now we got some breakthrough cards. So here, these are all adaptation cards. Now we got breakthrough cards. So quantum mechanics, energy fields, probe network, entangled transmitter, jump drives. Oh yeah, we would need that. Matter shifting and infra transfer. Okay, so we've got all these different cards. I'm wondering, I just don't understand why they had these 4 cards in this little packet here, unless, well, I do know usually when they correlate cards, different game companies now, when they correlate the cards, there's only so many cards they can put in a deck and seal it with the plastic, So I wonder if that may have been why those 4 cards are in this little sleeve here. Okay, so we've got the various different decks of cards. This game looks really cool. So it's really, really interesting. And it looks as if there's enough hard science as well as some pretty cool possible science. I mean, they're throwing aliens in at some point. But yeah, this looks really, really interesting. Okay, so we've got the baggies, we got the little tokens, the cubes, and the discs. We've got the two game boards, which are both dual-sided. We've got the player boards, which once again, dual-sided plus. This one is not. This is for the. I think that if I remember right, I think this is the one that's the Starfarers one. So very cool how you kind of change up your player board as you're progressing through the different eras. let's try to fit this stuff in here. Then we've got what appears to be kind of a, this might be for the solitaire game for the solo player, or it might just be kind of a play aid for all the players to kind of share. We also have the 4-player aids. Once again, two sides on these two. We've got the multiplayer rulebook, got the solo player rulebook, and a couple of bags for the game boards. And that is what we find when we take everything from SpaceCorp 2025-2300AD outside the box. As I pointed out before, SpaceCorp is available right now from GMT Games, and there we go. Trying to get the other camera on. It is available right now. It is designed by John Butterfield. It does carry an MSRP of $82. I will have a review of SpaceCorp in the very near future. I'm going to start digging into the solitaire game probably over the weekend. If I don't have anything crazy going on. If I don't have to go babysit, which I've been doing a lot of. Anyway, but I'm going to jump into this. As I always point out when I'm talking about GMT Games, if you have an interest in this, I highly recommend you pick it up ASAP, because a lot of people don't realize GMT does not do huge print runs. So their games tend to sell out pretty quickly. Usually their print runs are about 1,000, sometimes a little more than that. All depends on what they're putting together. But I know they've got their P500. Really takes more than 500 pre-orders for them to go forward with the game. But I would take a guess that this is probably not a game that they've produced tons and tons of copies of. And what'll happen is, if you don't jump on board and grab a GMT game, strike when the iron is hot, then you're stuck having to go through the secondary market. And I'll tell you right away, if out-of-print games from GMT are not cheap, they are not cheap to get your hands on. So this looks very cool. This looks very, very interesting. All right, so that is it for today's show. As I mentioned, on tomorrow's show, I am going to review Forbidden Lands from Modiphius Entertainment and Free League Publishing. This is my favorite role-playing game product of 2018. I mentioned that on my best of show. It wasn't a best of show. It's my favorite show. I swear, I can't believe that person emailed me about, you got a lot of nerve saying that these are the best games. It's like, I never said they were the best games. I said they were my favorite games. So anyway, I am going to show this off. We're going to dig into this because it is really, really good. So when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to go visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Well, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy the holiday season. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.